Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid, getting ready for the U.S. Open here in a few weeks in June as we close the book on the PGA Tour in the month of May. Let's bring in Brady Kannon for a recap of last week, a look ahead to this week's upcoming tournament. Brady, once again, great to see you and have you on the show. And last week at the Byron Nelson, birdies were out quite a bit. You don't generally see scores like this, but Wyndham Clark ends up taking home the championship, and that is not a typo. 30 under for the tournament, and he wasn't the only one. Scheffler 25, Siwoo Kim 27, Suber 23. So these tournaments, I guess, give a lot of confidence to the guys on the tour playing. It makes them think that, hey, I'm great and I'm back. But realistically speaking, I guess this was just one of the easier tour stops.
No doubt about it. And you have to feel for TPC Craig Ranch because they spent $25 million trying to upgrade this golf course and make it more difficult after Scottie Scheffler torched it to the tune of 31 under par last year. And he was 8 shots ahead of anyone else, his next closest pursuer. Well, Wyndham Clark, all he does is shoot 30 under par. And as you pointed out, a handful of guys that were, fairly close as well. So this course is obviously very, very easy for these guys. Now, it was wet and they were playing lift, clean, in place. But no matter what the situation is, 30 under par is pretty ridiculous. I felt that you had to have a hot putter. You've got to make a ton of birdies, obviously, to win a tournament like that. I think it'll be similar this week. The scores are not going to be anywhere near that. I think we probably end up with, 14, 15, 16, a reasonable winning score this week at Colonial. But these greens are very tough. Bent grass, great surfaces, fast. It's a very positional course, Craig. And you mentioned the U.S. Open. Watch this golf tournament this week with a discerning eye, because I think it can point to a lot of clues as to who might win in a few weeks at Shinnecock. This course, Colonial Country Club, 80th edition now of this golf tournament, the longest running PGA Tour event at the same course, and it hosted the U.S. Open in 1941. It has a lot of those same type of characteristics that lead to U.S. Open success. So I think that's a little bit that you have to keep in the back of your mind here this week when watching this golf event.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. This week it is the Charles Schwab Challenge, and naturally, after a couple eventful weeks, looks like some guys are taking the week off this week based on the field that I see. So Oberg is in it, so he's plus 850, and then everybody after that is essentially a long shot. We'll get to Brady's picks here in just a second. First, let's show you some of the current odds on some of the top players here. Oberg 850, Henley 18-1, Justin Thomas 18-1, Ricky Fowler 22-1.
Yeah, Justin Thomas is really popular this week. I just got the memo from our friends at BetMGM, and he is number one in ticket count, number one in handle, and he is their number one biggest liability. And that trifecta spells doom to me. I actually am a big fade of Justin Thomas this week because it feels like he is getting so much love. Now, it's a week, and he's obviously one of the best players in this field. But he's getting a ton of love off of what he did at the PGA Championship a couple of weeks ago, where he was brilliant. But that's really been his best major. He's won the PGA twice. The U.S. Open has been his worst major. And as I mentioned, this is very similar to a U.S. Open type setup. He may do fine, but I don't think he's not my pick for a winner this week, Craig.
Okay, fair enough. So Brady does have some super long shot bombs this week. I'm looking at 6 names and I recognize 2. So that tells me we're really in for one this week. T.Poston is the name that I recognize really right at the top. He is 70-1. All right, Brady, I always ask you, how'd you land on these?
Well, it was kind of the same strategy as last week. Find guys that can really make a lot of birdies and putt very well. And you got to take some shots with some bombs. Because like you say, Oberg, Henley, Thomas, and then after that, you basically get started at 50 or 60-1. So Ryan Gerard, he did really well at the Sony earlier this year. And I think there's a lot of correlation with this golf course, Colonial, with the Sony. T.Poston, excellent short game you mentioned. Also went with Eric Cole, another tremendous short game player. Meissner, who's been in really good form as of late. I'm going to go back to the well with Taylor Moore. He cashed a top 20 ticket for us last week. And then Lee Hodges, the longest bomb of them all, at 150 to 1. We'll see if we can find a needle in the haystack, Craig.
All right, Brady, good luck. We'll see you again next week. Thanks for coming on NewsWire. Appreciate it.